Hi, I'm Landscaper, and this is the Wannabe Composer series. So, this is more of my Dungeons and Dragons series. I haven't done a video for a little while. As some of you know, I have a les enfants who has been ill for like 2 months, which is very tedious for all of us. So I haven't really, although I've cracked on with various things, I haven't actually been video worthy, if you know what I mean. I know this isn't an oil painting, but I could barely breathe for the last month, so that's been fun. Anyway, as you can see in the background, he has done me a little picture, which is nice, cheered me up. As is obvious, it's fireworks, of course. I suspect the Louvre will be in touch any moment now to see if they can hang it up in the gallery. Anyway, so we've got the Dungeons and Dragons gig, which is great, and I've actually got another gig as well thrown in, so we're going to be quite busy for a little while, and we might actually be able to eat, which is novel. I shall enjoy that. So anyway, I'm going to go back and take you through some of the journey. I'm going to condense it a little bit, but show you the bits I put forward and what we're going to be doing going forward. And then I'm going to get into that other gig that I've said. I've got another theatre job coming up fairly soon, which will be really good. So, Dungeons and Dragons. We're just waiting for, this was the, it's ready, excellent. My computer takes a long time to load all these instruments and stuff like that, so normally I don't bother starting a video until I'm ready. Now, I haven't listened to this, but this was the first, this is the In the Beginning part 1, and this was one of the examples that I sent forward. I think I might have gone through and explained some of this stuff already, but I'm just going to go back again. I'm now using Cubase 15. I've upgraded. It's really good. I'm not going to get into it too much because there's plenty of people out there who will give you great tutorials on how to use Cubase. And as most people know, I am not super tech savvy, so a user for sure, but anyway, I'm really liking it so far. I might stick in the description a couple of people that I think are really good at chatting about Cubase 15. But for the meantime, let's just crack on with this. So, as you can see up here, what I've done originally, I don't think I actually went into how I did this, but I put little markers in. Right, so there's a button over here, this little / over here, which basically separates out, and it's disappeared, separates out 2 different sort of sections of Cubase, right? So we've got our main orchestration and all that kind of stuff down here. And then in my second section, the bit that sits above, I mean, it's very basic, and I'm sure there might be cleverer ways to do this, but this is what I do. I have a little bar that I draw in for the length that I want, and then I just simply label it what I want, and that gives me a bit of a guide as I'm going through writing the track. I can just sort of look up and see, okay, so for the first 4 bars I want an intro, then I want to break into my main theme, and you can see underneath that I've pretty much stuck to it. I'm a little bit off here at the kind of outro bit by the looks of it, and I've not quite run the length of the outro that I could. But again, for testing purposes, because this is kind of just to, or was just to see if I could get the gig in the first place, I didn't really need to stick to anything religiously. If you get a spec that says, right, it's got to be this for the first 30 seconds, this for the next minute, this whatever, you're going to want to, use something that gives you that. Timing wise as well, now I haven't done this, but it's quite useful if you're really specific timings, and they are 30 seconds to a minute, they are specific portions, then actually writing stuff in 120 makes sense, right? Actually allows you to kind of keep your bars at that point. I wanted to do something that was a bit quicker, a bit more up tempo. So I've written this at 140 beats per minute. You can see the beats per minute come down here, which you can adjust with these little arrows. Very useful. Anyway, so let's have a little listen to where we were at. Hope it doesn't fall over. Now not done any real mixing on this, proper mixing, because my ears have been absolutely shot. It's quite quiet, isn't it? I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a tiny bit of mixing just now on the stereo out, because I've recently bought some new plugins, which I'm really liking. So I will probably edit this bit out. Okay, so this is my stereo out here, over here on the right. You can hopefully see it's quite small. To do what, let's bring it over here so it's a little bit larger. So I run a plugin called True Iron first. True Iron gives us sort of transients and additional little niceties like that. And I tend to initially start with a kind of preset. If I'm doing orchestral, I might put orchestral glue on, mastering hi-fi. And then I tend to just add a few little bits, a tiny bit of crush, a tiny bit of strength, and then for orchestral stuff I tend to use this setting. Again, I mean, I'm a user, I'm not super knowledgeable about it. I then run Smart EQ over the whole thing, and basically what I try and do is I pick the kind of busiest part of the track, which is probably actually further along, probably. I'm pointing to a screen, you can't see where I'm pointing. This area here. Smart. Right, Smart EQ. Then I run an ozone, which I've basically got set up with a kind of overall equalizer, a dynamic compression, and I tend to put a little bit of this thing, which is Imager, which basically moves different frequencies. You can put different widths of stereo field on, and I tend to lower the lows so they're more mono, and then the highs I spread out a little bit, give it a bit of width. I'll get to that in a second. I've got a couple of soothes because I tend to run like a little mastering soothe on the left and right, and I run one on the mid and side as well. I mean, most people will tell you less is more, you know, make your original sounds better. And they are almost certainly right, and probably much better mixers than I am. However, I love a plugin, so chuck it all in. The kitchen sink. A vintage compressor gives me a bit more volume. I've got a new plugin. This thing is phenomenal. Silver Bullet. Again, if I remember, I'll put something in the description, because this thing has rocked my world. And we'll get into that later, possibly, or I'll just send you off to someone who can actually tell you what it does properly rather than me going bleh. Another little smart compressor at the end, and a smart limiter to get my levels where I want them. I've also got this little thing. So Steinberg do this. Linda there. That sounds like a name, doesn't it? Anyway, this won't make any difference to the audible kind of sound, but when you are bumping it down from, say, 24-bit to 16-bit or whatever, it holds it together a lot better. Was that a good description? Probably not. Probably not. Oh, yeah. Came here to learn, did ya? Good luck with that. Right. Now this could blow our ears off because I've got everything on, so let's turn everything back off for a second so we know where we're at. Well, I was going to check it with a bit of True Iron, hope it doesn't ruin your luggles. Okay, so that's added some transients. Run a little EQ over the top. So this will just shape it a little bit. Normally in the, again, I'm probably going to mix this properly, although it was just the bit of music to get the gig, so not sure it's actually going to be of any use moving forward. They may not want it. But usually I will have done all the EQing to all the individual parts. So I'll have taken out my low pass on some of the kicks and the takeout drums and basses and all that kind of stuff. I will have attempted to de-shrill all my violins and curb the cellos and all that kind of thing. So anyway, I'm not going to do that right now because time. So I'm just going to run it a little bit over the top. and we're still way below where we want to be. So I'm just going to open up, again in my ears it's quite quiet, I'm going to open up my Stephen Slate VSX, this thing here. Awesome. Again, maybe at some point I will talk about this. This has revolutionized my my mixing abilities, lagals and whatnot. Very, very good. Very cool, very cool. Anyway, again, not getting stuck into that. I'm going to take a little bit of the mud out. So, 120. I'm going to drop a fairly tight curve by -6 for now. And then at 300, I am going to drop another tight curve. Tighten my curve, tighten it. And I'm going to drop that quite dramatically, -12. Around the 300 mark is where you get a lot of your mud and your bleh. Super high, crispy bits. I mean, my ears are too old to hear, but I know sometimes it gets a bit piercy. So anyway, that'll do as a rough go for now. Okay, so now we're going to drop the ozone in. And remember, when you're listening, you can bypass the effect to see the difference that you've made. If you're not happy with it, obviously you can retinker. So I tend to, whether it's the right thing to do or not, in fact, I've got a preset for this, I believe, which is just comp and space. So I've already run the EQ on the Smart EQ, so I don't really need to run a secondary EQ through ozone. It's a little bit overkill. Sometimes I do, occasionally I naughtily use like a brick wall effect for specific instruments, but anyway, we're not doing that right now. So I've already preset this one. I'm going to check the dynamics in a second, but the imagery you can see here, right? So the lower end I've dropped by 30, which should pull the bass into a bit more of a mono sound. When you're making dance music and things like that, your kicks and your basses sometimes want to be dead mono, right? Real mono, not mock mono, which is what I'm kind of doing here. But some of the other stuff that I do, I kind of want to have a bit more freedom of movement. I want it to have a bit more atmosphere to it, so I don't restrict it as much. So this section here, which is running, you know, the lower hertz range, from the kind of inaudible to human ears, but you can kind of feel it range, which is a sort of minus 50s, 40s down, then 60 up to 100, all up to 300, and I then put in a second bracket in here, right, which is 300, 600. That is the kind of mud space for a lot of tracks. Again, prior to getting to this stage, I should have tried to have taken most of that out of the instrumentation already, but as an overall, once it's all together, you know, you'll get frequencies mashing in, so try and lessen that a little bit. So again, I'll have sort of a dynamic range that will sit here in the mud. Try and kill some of that. Right, anyway, so I've taken that back as well, by only by a little bit. And then this range here, 600 to 3K, I give it a little bit of sparkle. And then the top one, which is your 3K to the top, basically, I give it a little more sparkle. What I'm doing here is I'm looking with these dynamics, literally just a cap, like 0.01, to try and just compress that very top bit and then limit that very top bit ever so slightly. So with this, the compression, you can see at the bottom, you'll get a little red 0.1 or whatever you've pulled it down to. And then with the limiter, you see a little bit of red appears at the top here. I'm assuming you can see this properly. It's not quite on the screen, is it? But there you go, that's a bit better. Okay, happy with that. So given a little more output than input as well, just attempting to raise the volume a little. So now we move on to the the soothes. There ain't no M in there. And I'm just using a little mastering preset. There's less mud on the master, so I like to remove mud. This will be exactly the same, but will be on left and right. Right, I've just looked over at my computer to see how it's doing, and it's not doing well, and we're not even finished. Oh man, I'm hardly playing anything. It's very annoying. Right, so what I'm doing, as I've done many times before, is I'm using less computing power for what I'm listening to, but when it does the final mix down, the output, that'll be higher. Anyway, so I've set those. Right, vintage compressor. So I'm going to apply a little bit of compression to get a bit more volume out of it. Okay, and that's what I wanted to see, just the yellow light up there on 1. Again, not pushing it too hard. Gives it a tiny bit of compression. I've noticed my release is quite high. I wonder if I've built a preset for this. Oh gosh, there is a load of presets. I don't think they're mine. Okay, I guess I haven't built one for this, but it doesn't matter. So, going to have a very short release and quite a quick punch in. I'll put that at 5 milliseconds. Then the release will set at about 100, 120, so somewhere between those two. Let's have another listen. Okay, so I can now see that I'm starting to get a little too loud over here. Then I'm going to bring this new bad boy in, the Silver Bullet. Again, we'll get into this some other time, but this thing is awesome. I think we'll just do a light modern mastering. This could blow our ears off. This could blow our ears off. So perhaps I'll take my volume down a little bit so I don't hurt myself. And you may want to do the same just in case. Okay, let's go. Ah, didn't do anything, did it? Except play out of sequence, right? And really what I'm looking for here, bar getting into too much, is I want it to be around 10, between 9 and 12 on the output here. Garden here, right. Okay, nice. Right, we're going to do smart compression, take off the auto gain, stick the limiter on, and then I don't really want to see much more than between 1 and 2 decibels being knocked off. So you might have just heard it then when the drum came in. Again, I should have mixed all of that stuff prior, but when the drum came in, it crushed it a bit too much, and audibly it sounds meh. Then I've got the limiter. Now this should get the range up, so it should be a good volume after this has done its thing. Watch your ears. Now I do have another new plugin. I mean, the computer's going to absolutely explode, so perhaps I'll leave it for now, given that this is just a demo. Do I put it on? So I've bought a Waves Ultra Maximizer L4. Is it L4? Yes, L4 Ultra Maximizer. Which, again, I don't know how any of this stuff works. Let's be honest, but this manages to lift the output volume again, and where I've set it at -3, which might be a bit much actually, -2. When I output this as a WAV form, it'll be clipped and gripped at -2, which means I can then get another little bit of amplification Try saying that when you're drunk. Amplification out of it. So hopefully the end track will be of a decent volume to go on to whatever streaming platform, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Fine. I mean, that was a really long way around just to get some volume out of it, so it doesn't sound super quiet, wasn't it? Now we have a listen, yes? Okay, so arrangement's pretty reasonable. I think it's hopefully met the brief. I know it met the brief, or one of the ones that met the brief. I think I would definitely do more work on it, definitely mix it a little bit better to get a bit more out of it. There's a little bit of, well, it's kind of hard for me to tell if there's definition missing at the moment because my ears are so blocked, which really does make it difficult. Having a cold can really set you back in terms of mixing. But there you go. Anyway, so that was the first one that I put through. So I'm now going to take a bit of a pause and I'm going to load up the second one that I sent through as well. Just so you can have a little listen and we can talk through that. Okay, I'll see you in a bit. You get that feeling that you didn't save it? Surely it would have asked me. Yeah.